There are mornings when you wake up feeling like you've already lost before anything even begins. Unread messages, unfinished work, old memories that still linger. The moment your feet touch the floor, it feels like stepping into battle, not with the world, but with yourself. But if you pause right there, take one deep breath and ask a simple question: who will I choose to be today? The entire day begins to shift, quietly, just a silent choice, but a powerful one. Stoic philosophy doesn't promise you a life without pain, without pressure, or without mistakes. It simply shows you the one thing you'll always have control over: how you choose to respond. Each morning is a new beginning, not because the world has changed, but because you have a chance to choose how you'll step into it. We don't control our circumstances, but we can control how we think, how we feel, and how we act. That's where real strength begins, from within. And now, I will share with you 14 morning declarations to help you wake not just to live, but to live rightly. 1. I am not a product of the past. I am a choice of the present. The past may leave a mark, but it holds no authority over who you are unless you let it. What you've done, the mistakes you've made, the failures you've endured, they all belong to an older version of yourself. They are data, not destiny. You don't need to reject your past to move forward, but you do need to refuse to live in it as if nothing ahead is worth discovering. Each morning doesn't ask you to be perfect, only to be humble enough to reflect and brave enough to begin again, even if it's just one small step. Stoic philosophy teaches it is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that defines you. And your first response, the most important one, is to refuse to be labeled by what is already behind you. Forgiving yourself isn't avoidance. It's the conscious act of removing a weight from your spirit so you can continue the journey. You cannot go far if you keep looking back. Anyone can make mistakes, but not everyone dares to grow from them instead of being trapped in guilt. You may not have controlled what happened, but you always control what happens next through the choice you make right now. When you remind yourself, I am not the result of my stumbles. I am the one rising from them. You reclaim ownership of your life. Healing doesn't begin when things are forgotten. It begins when you accept them as past and refuse to let them shape what's ahead. And this morning, the moment you wake up, is a quiet invitation to begin again. Not because you must, but because you can. 2. I already have everything I need within me. In an age that constantly urges us to have more skills, more achievements, more validation, people are lured into a cycle of imagined deficiency, where they're convinced they're not ready to begin, not good enough to be worthy, not perfect enough to live with confidence. But Stoic philosophy teaches that the most valuable things are not what we gather from the outside, but what already exists within. From birth, each of us has been given reason, self-awareness, and the ability to govern our own actions. This isn't just a moral foundation, it's an inner wealth that no circumstance can ever strip away. Epictetus emphasized, you lack nothing to live a virtuous life. You only need to use what you already have. Inner strength doesn't come from imitation or blind accumulation of knowledge, but from the realization that you are already a complete system awaiting awakening, refinement, and timely application. What holds us back isn't actual lack, but the habit of self-doubt, the distorted ruler we use to compare ourselves, the limiting belief that our worth must be confirmed externally. When you turn inward and see what you already possess, persistence, resilience, compassion, clear thinking, curiosity, humility, and courage, you'll realize you don't need to wait for the perfect conditions, but to start from where you are, with who you truly are. The most solid tools come from cultivating the inner life, not from stacking external appearances. And every morning is a reminder. You don't need to become someone else to start living rightly. You only need to trust yourself as a source already full. Not because you are everything, but because you already have everything truly essential. When you live from that place, freedom begins, and every step forward is rooted in an inner strength untouched by dependency. 3. My energy is finite, and I choose where to place it. Every person wakes up carrying a certain amount of mental energy. It's not infinite, it cannot be squandered carelessly, and it should never be handed out as if we're obligated to meet every external demand. That energy is like an inner currency. Every action, every decision, every reaction is a form of spending. Without the awareness to place it wisely, you'll soon find yourself depleted without even realizing it. Stoicism doesn't teach us to withdraw from life, but to discern what's truly worthy of our attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is more than advice, it's guidance for managing personal energy. When you realize your response to events is a choice, not a compulsion, you begin to preserve what would otherwise be wasted. Getting pulled into every invitation, every argument, every distraction drains your energy through leaks you don't even notice. A scattered mind cannot remain calm, nor can it focus long enough to create something meaningful. Burnout rarely comes from one major event, but from hundreds of small, unchecked reactions every day. That's why learning to say no quietly is how you preserve the deepest part of yourself from being eroded by the habit of pleasing or the fear of judgment. When you choose where your energy goes, you're building mental boundaries. These are invisible walls that protect what's valuable from what's trivial. You don't need to be harsh or defensive, just conscious of what truly matters. And if every morning you remind yourself that your energy is finite, you'll stop letting it be drained by what doesn't deserve it. This isn't selfish, it's the highest form of self-respect and self-mastery. Because the one who protects their energy for the right things is the one who builds life by conscious design, not by being pulled blindly by the crowd. 4. The mind is a weapon, and today, I control it. In every silent battle we face daily, there is no sharper tool than the mind. It's the starting point of every emotion, every action, and every outcome we create in life. If you can control your mind, you can control the course of your day, and even the course of your life. But if the mind runs wild, driven by habit and momentary emotion, then you become a servant to what was meant to serve you. The mind is not an enemy, but without training, it's easily swayed by fear, illusion, and the noise of the world. Stoicism doesn't ask us to suppress emotion, but to guide emotion through reason. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to us that causes suffering, but how we think about it." A reminder that the root of suffering isn't found in circumstance, but in our mental reaction to it. If you begin the day without setting your mind, you leave the door open to every external influence. A careless comment, a negative headline, a random mishap. Any of these can hijack your state if you're not firmly in command. But if you take time each morning to shape your thoughts, choose your mindset, and remind yourself, "I govern my mind," then you are suiting up with the strongest armor there is. Controlling the mind isn't a one-time act. It's a daily discipline. It requires persistence, ongoing awareness, and conscious correction. Because what you think repeatedly becomes belief, and belief shapes behavior. So when you feed your mind with clarity, direction, and constructive thought, you are rewriting your life from within. And there is no power more enduring than the internal power that comes from knowing. The mind is a weapon, and each day, It is you, not the world, who must wield it. 5. I act with purpose, not pulled by pressure. In a world that glorifies speed and busyness, it's easy to mistake movement for progress. People often get swept into a whirlwind of tasks, forgetting the most important thing: why they're doing it. When actions lack a clear purpose, we become victims of social pressure, external expectations, and the inertia of reactive habits. Over time, life stops being driven by intention and becomes dictated by the need to keep up, to achieve, to prove something. Stoicism teaches that nothing outside your control matters more than how you choose to respond. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it's not necessary, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it." His words carry a profound awareness that simplicity doesn't come from doing less, but from doing only what truly matters. When your actions are rooted in inner purpose, you are no longer being dragged, you are self-directed. Pressure breeds rushed actions, forcing us to trade quality for speed and core values for temporary approval. Purpose, on the other hand, produces steady action, fuels deep focus, and yields lasting fulfillment. When you pause and ask, "Does this truly matter to me?" you are making a conscious choice. That very choice is an act of inner freedom where you are no longer manipulated by outside noise. Acting with purpose isn't about doing less, it's about choosing better. It means engaging fully, with reason and values at the forefront. When you act for what you truly believe in, pressure loses its power over you. You don't need to outrun anyone, nor prove anything to anyone. You only need to stay true to what you know is right. And from that place, even the smallest steps become solid because they come not from fear, but from clarity. 6. What's meant for me will not miss me. There are moments in life when we begin to doubt ourselves because a door didn't open, an opportunity slipped away, or an outcome didn't match our hopes. We often tie our worth to whether things go our way, forgetting that life doesn't follow the timeline of our emotions. At its core, peace doesn't come from holding on to everything, but from the belief that what's meant for you will come at the right time, by the right path, and won't slip away if you are ready to receive it. Stoicism doesn't teach passive waiting, but rather the release of futile control over what's beyond our reach. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Love your fate, for it is the path to freedom." This is not a call to blind acceptance, but a reminder that when you act with openness and live by your values, what truly fits you will find you without force and without missing its mark. Believing that what is yours will not leave does not mean abandoning effort. It means not losing your peace when outcomes don't align with your will. Sometimes, what you want most doesn't arrive not because you are unworthy, but because something better is being reserved for you, something you're not yet clear enough to recognize. Every rejection, every closed door, every delay is a test of whether you trust your path and have the strength to continue without compromising who you are for approval. Trusting in what's right won't make you lazy, it will make you steadfast. It helps you act without anxiety, give without expectation, strive without fear. And when you walk with that mindset, life stops being a string of losses and becomes a process of refinement. What isn't meant for you will fall away. What is truly yours will remain. And you won't have to force anything to feel complete. 7. Every morning is a chance to begin again. No miracle needed. Life doesn't always require great upheaval to change, nor does it need miraculous events to start over. Sometimes, the most powerful act is the simple awareness that you can begin again on any given morning just by choosing to live differently. No ritual needed, no declarations, no validation from anyone else, just one quiet moment at dawn where you look inward and choose better. Stoic philosophy emphasizes the present moment as an open opportunity unhindered by the past, unburdened by the future. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "At dawn, when you wake up, remind yourself, I was born to act, to live according to human nature." His words are not a command to achieve something grand, but a gentle reminder that every day you're alive is a chance to live more rightly, even in the smallest way. No one needs to wait for a milestone to change. Tomorrow won't be better unless today begins with a clear choice. Starting over doesn't begin in regret. It begins in awareness. And morning is the purest time for awareness before the world intrudes, before the noise and pace of life fragment your focus. In that stillness, you can reset your intention, realign your path, adjust your mindset, and face the day with purpose. Rebirth requires no ceremony, only quiet resolve. When you understand you can begin again each morning, you stop being haunted by the past or lost in the fog of the future. You become someone who lives in the present, empowered to choose every step anew. And the miracle is not what happens outside, but in knowing that you can rewrite your life, one page at a time, starting with this dawn, no permission needed. 8. I live not just to exist, but to leave a mark. To merely exist is to breathe, to eat, to move, and to carry out the necessary tasks of daily life. But to truly live requires a deeper layer of meaning to know why you live, what you live for, and how to live in a way that lets you say, at day's end, that your time was not wasted. Existence is something every living creature can do, but to create positive impact, to leave something of value behind, is a path only the awakened dare to walk. Stoicism doesn't set life's purpose in fame, admiration, or performative success, but in integrity, presence, and the moral influence you leave on others. Every action, no matter how small, carries power if it's done with sincerity, with awareness of consequence, and in service of what's right. A kind word, a fair decision, a steady attitude in adversity, all are signs that you live to make a mark, not just to pass through. You don't need grand gestures to leave an imprint. What matters is that you live as if every choice has weight, as if every step contributes to building a better world. When you reject reflexive living, when you refuse to be swept along without asking why, you begin to live with responsibility and purpose. And from that responsibility, the mark you leave isn't measured by greatness, but by depth. To live with impact is a quiet act of resistance against meaninglessness. It's the way you choose to plant seeds in life's soil, even knowing you may never see the harvest. But you still plant because you understand meaning lies in the act, not in the outcome. And if each morning you remind yourself that you live not just to fulfill duties, but to inspire, to heal, to build, to lift someone up, then you've already touched a deeper way of being. One where your mark is not in what you leave behind, but in how you show up every single day. 9. I control my perspective, not my circumstances. In every situation life presents, the one thing no one can take from you is your power to choose how you perceive it. Circumstances may strike unexpectedly, and hardships may arrive without warning, but the way you interpret those moments will determine how you endure them. The difference between those who remain steady and those who collapse under pressure does not lie in how many challenges they face, but in their understanding that while circumstances are beyond control, perception belongs entirely to oneself. Stoicism long ago established a core principle. It is not events that cause suffering, but our thoughts about them. Epictetus said, "We are not disturbed by events, but by our opinions of them." When one stops trying to change what is outside their power and turns inward to reframe their perspective, it is not weakness or surrender. It is a deep spiritual transformation from reacting to responding, from passivity to mastery. No one lives without hardship, but not everyone trains themselves to find meaning within it. When something unwanted occurs, you can see it as failure or as a chance to learn something new. When you're rejected, you can choose to see it as hurt or as redirection toward a better path. And when a plan collapses, you can treat it as the end or the beginning of a version of yourself you've never imagined. To control your perspective is not to sugarcoat reality or deny difficulty, but to keep your mind clear, free from distortion by bias, impulsive emotion, or outside negativity. It is an intentional act of guarding inner clarity amidst the constant turbulence of life. Living this way, you are no longer a victim of events, but the one steering the sail, ready to adjust your course no matter which way the wind blows. And only within that freedom do you truly possess yourself. 10. The present is everything. The rest is just noise. In the course of life, people are often pulled in two directions: regret for the past and anxiety about the future. Both are unreachable dimensions of time, yet they consume most of our mind and energy. Meanwhile, the only moment you are truly alive, the present, is left ignored. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but right now, where every thought, choice, and action is shaping who you are and the life you live. Stoicism views the present as the sole foundation of inner freedom. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Stop wandering. You cannot find peace anywhere but in this very moment." This is not just philosophical advice, but a compass to keep one's mind steady in a world full of distractions. When you return to the present, you stop the spiral of regret and worry and return to the only space you can control: yourself. Focusing on the present doesn't mean abandoning plans or ignoring lessons from the past, but it means refusing to drown in what cannot be changed or is not yet known. It is an act of awareness, of seeing the value in fully living each moment, whether that's a single deep breath, a clear thought, or a deliberate step forward. In this presence, you reclaim authority over your thoughts, emotions, and actions, no longer pulled by noise from the world or your own untamed mind. When you live in the present, even the smallest things gain meaning. A sentence, a decision, a glance, they all carry weight because they emerge from full attention. Conversely, when you are consumed by what lies outside the present, everything you do becomes shallow, reactive, and vulnerable to influence. So, to choose the present is to choose clarity, peace, and truth. And when you truly understand that the present is everything, and the rest is just noise you no longer chase, you no longer flee, you begin to truly live. 11. I welcome discomfort as a training ground for the will. Human nature carries a deep impulse to seek comfort and avoid what causes discomfort. Yet, it is prolonged ease that wears down the will and leaves the spirit fragile before life's inevitable disruptions. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is a signal that a boundary is being tested, a limit is being reached, and an opportunity for growth is appearing. Only when you learn to step into discomfort calmly and deliberately can adversity become a foundation for inner strength. Stoic philosophy urges us not to eliminate hardship, but to view it as essential to self-mastery. Seneca wrote, "Only in adversity is virtue tested and strengthened." When you receive discomfort, not with reluctance, but with conscious acceptance, you build a resilient mindset, one that no longer reacts instinctively, but responds with reason. In that way, discomfort becomes a tool to sharpen the will, patience, and self-control. Each time you face discomfort, whether physical, emotional, or mental, and resist the urge to react impulsively, you train your capacity to stand firm. This is not passive endurance, it is an intentional entry into challenge, with a mind aimed at learning and growth. When something unsettles you, instead of asking, "How can I avoid this?" ask yourself, "How can I grow stronger from it?" To accept discomfort is not to live in extreme austerity, but to understand that no lasting strength is born in the comfort zone. By refusing to retreat, you cultivate an inner capacity that can withstand anything. And if each day you approach discomfort as a willpower workout, you will gradually become resilient without trying to prove it to anyone. You are simply strong because you've chosen the hard path, and you walk it with awareness. 12. I accept what's beyond reach and act with what's in my hands. One of the deepest roots of anxiety lies in our constant effort to control what was never ours to command. The mind stretches toward unpredictable expectations, others' reactions, sudden circumstances, and outcomes that no amount of effort can guarantee. In doing so, our energy gets drained into what lies beyond us, while the one thing that needs our care ourselves is left neglected. Stoicism teaches that true freedom does not come from controlling the world, but from governing the self. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, others are not." Recognizing this is the first step to wisdom. To accept our limits is not defeat, it is clarity. For instead of wasting time and thought on the impossible, we return to what is within our power, and it is there that change becomes real. Acceptance is not passivity or resignation, it is the refusal to waste effort in futile resistance, and instead, bringing full attention to practical choices. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you begin to master time, emotion, and energy. You are no longer tossed by change, but grounded in purposeful and meaningful action. Focusing on what's in your hands not only helps you do better, it brings clarity, steadiness, and peace. Every small act within your control builds autonomy and strengthens belief in your ability to navigate life without needing to dominate it. Through that process, you don't just live more effectively, you live more deeply, with presence, with responsibility, and with a serenity untouched by external conditions. When you understand that some things can only be accepted and not altered, and at the same time, you persist in acting on what you do control, you've entered a state of deliberate and we living. This is not merely a Stoic principle, it is a way of life that keeps you steady through all change. 13. I am grateful, not because life is easy, but because I am still alive. True gratitude doesn't depend on whether things are going our way. It arises from a deep awareness that life, in any form, is still a gift. When we tie gratitude only to comfort, favorable outcomes, or pleasant moments, it becomes conditional and fragile. It quickly disappears when adversity strikes, and we fall back into complaint, denial, or overlook the value of what we still have. Stoicism does not treat gratitude as a fleeting feeling, but as a way of living. A constant recognition that no matter the circumstances, there is always something to acknowledge, to learn from, to feel, and to keep living for with purpose. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." This doesn't mean ignoring pain or pretending to be optimistic. It means seeing reality clearly and choosing to shine a grateful light on whatever remains, even if it's just a flicker. When gratitude is practiced intentionally, it no longer depends on conditions. It becomes a state of being. You don't need to wait for everything to be perfect to feel fulfilled. On the contrary, It's the inner fullness that lets you face life with peace, even when outer circumstances are far from ideal. Gratitude allows you to keep depth amidst change, clarity amidst chaos, and kindness even in a world that may grow cold. Being grateful simply for being alive is the highest expression of awareness. It requires no special reason, only presence. You breathe, you feel, you think, you get to choose again. That alone is reason enough to be thankful. And when you live in that state each day, you stop moving through life as if it owes you something and begin to live as though every moment is a gift. In that simplicity, you'll realize gratitude doesn't erase hardship, but it makes your heart wide enough to walk through it with strength and compassion. 14. Every obstacle is material for growth. No one moves through life without encountering obstacles. They come in many forms: failure, pain, delays, loss, or seemingly impossible limitations. But what separates someone who matures from someone who merely reacts to life is not how many hardships they avoid, but how they meet those hardships when they arise. In Stoic philosophy, obstacles are not seen as blockages, but as essential parts of a conscious person's path of development. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not merely encouragement, it is a profound philosophy of living. In reality, it is contact with difficulty that shapes character, expands inner strength, and reveals parts of the self we never reach inside the comfort zone. No trait of true value is ever formed without passing through the crucible of hardship. Obstacles test our beliefs, measure the strength of our will, and reveal the quality of our thinking. When we learn to see challenges as raw material, not barriers, we change our entire approach. Every failure becomes a lesson sent our way. Every delay becomes a test of persistence. Every rejection becomes an invitation to reevaluate, to adjust, or to grow in how we respond. And in that process, we don't just overcome circumstances, we rise above who we used to be. Turning obstacles into fuel for growth doesn't happen instantly. It requires patience, keen observation, and a mindset unshaken by momentary emotion. Through this discipline, you become more resilient, more clear-headed, and more self-directed. That outcome doesn't come from luck, but from the courage to face difficulty with a constructive, not defensive spirit. When you live with the belief that no experience is meaningless, every crack becomes a passage deeper into the self, and every challenge becomes a stepping stone for your strength. And in the moments that seem harshest, a stronger version of you is quietly being forged. What I've taken away from everything shared is not that we must become superhuman, nor that we should try to control everything so life always goes our way. It's about learning to return to ourselves each day, to consciously choose how we live, instead of reacting out of habit. Morning affirmations are not magic spells that make life easier. They are reminders of inner resilience, the kind we often forget when swept up in the rush and invisible pressures of daily life. Repeating these declarations isn't just self-encouragement, it's a mental discipline, a way to realign our direction before the outside world has a chance to impose anything on us. It's how I choose to stay grounded in my values, to reconnect with reason, and to hold my position steady amidst the chaos. Not to prove anything to others, but to live in truth with what I know is right within me. If anything I've shared has offered you even a small sense of direction or gentle inspiration, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next content. And if there's one thing to remember after all of this, it's this. You don't have to wait for life to be perfect to live meaningfully. You just have to begin from this very moment. I'll see you in the next video.